I want to start off with some questions from the internet. Joe, do we have a internet question?
Yes, I have one internet question for Colleen. Current 0.5 TRXs and software limited to 512 to 614 megahertz. Are there any plans to extend the range to include 614 to 616 megahertz guard range? Guard band, sorry.
No one's actually asked us that question before, but I'm sure it's possible. I can definitely find out and let you guys know.
Great.
Anybody have any questions? And I guess I should take a minute to introduce Colleen from Zaxcom, Howard from Lectrosonics, Ben from Shure. Any questions about licensing or use or anything?
Has there been any, for all those users who are being affected by this, I mean, all this money that T-Mobile and these companies paid, did anyone ever bring up the idea that maybe some of that money should have been allocated to help these people out with the costs of these changes and stuff like that?
Only to pay down the debt that the Treasury owes. That's it.
You know,
just to really specifically answer, even Peter was there at the time. We went many times to the FCC offices in Washington and pleaded that case. And during the meetings, they were, we'll consider that. That sounds like a reasonable request. But in the long run, they did not do that.
I mean, I know people who block changed out of the 700 band into the 600 band and are going to have to do it again. Like, that's just sort of absurd. But
it's unfortunate. As I understand it, other countries have gone through similar repacking and digital transitions and such, namely Japan have had that luxury of being subsidized or getting their equipment subsidized for them.
And the UK as well.
And the UK as well.
They were subsidized really generously.
Absolutely. So it's not out of the question to think that, but unfortunately, as it is in the U.S., it didn't happen.
So my follow-up question to that is, I myself have to move out. I'm in block 26, across the board. If I were to move into a lower block or wideband in that offered by any of the companies, what guarantee that I have in 5 years from now I'm not going to have to reblock it all again or go something entirely different? Or is there any guarantee in any of that?
Well, the only guarantee is in life for death and taxes, obviously.
Sure.
But if we look at the big picture of it, in my opinion, the most future-proof range would be that STL range, which is already for licensed users, and it's unlikely that will be absorbed or will be probably the last to be absorbed. For example, if the 500 megahertz gets under attack years from now or something, that has been dedicated to broadcasters and probably be unlikely to be taken away before the 500. But that's just my opinion.
So that's the 941 to 960 band.
And I mean, it's not relevant for every situation, but that's why we put a recorder in the body packs. So at least you've got it somewhere.
Right.
When you apply for an operator license, do you have any frequency agility, or are you buying a license for specific locked frequency?
Generally, the licenses that I've seen, and Jim, please feel free to talk about this, you're applying for all frequencies that you're eligible to operate in.
Okay.
So typically the licenses, they break it down into like 5 bands, but it's 470 to, it doesn't go all the way through, it stops, well, I guess now it'll stop at 608. Yeah. But then also you'll see the VHF and the STL bands in there as well. Sorry.
Isn't there some sort of, I'm asking, is there any lobbying organization from the entertainment industry? I mean, that's movies, television, sports. I mean, it seems to me that they have at least as much financial clout as T-Mobile. You know what I mean?
I've seen Broadway, I've seen the sports video group, I've seen like individual large mega churches, I've seen broadcasters, of course. I have not seen like the, who I would expect to see, the Association of Motion Picture Producers. I haven't seen that. Now, I could have missed it in the filings, but they're not like a known presence. Like the Broadway League, you know that they're there. They've hired their own counsel. I mean, they're they're a big presence, not for us.
So the effort has been more ad hoc. It's not that there hasn't been a unified effort, but these meetings at the FCC offices were often attended by most of those groups. It varied from time to time, but only on an ad hoc basis.
I will say you can, I guess the comments are the comments still open? Can people still file comments?
Well, not on the general rules of order, but there are some things that were opened up recently for comment that you still can file. Yes.
Any citizen can file. And I think it's worth it to file a comment or complaint to say, why aren't we being remunerated, and how this is a major change for us, inconvenience for us.
No one mentioned this, but it just came to mind. Microsoft is pushing very hard now with a new proposal to gain 2 channels of white space for dedicated use. And this is kind of odd because they didn't bid for any channels during the actual auction. But that's something I would comment on if you feel like getting involved in having a voice, because that would take away channels from our wireless microphone use.
Dedicated for just their use?
That just came up now?
Yeah, about 2 months ago.
So I noticed on the Microsoft, on the white space devices, when they repack the TV channels in the New York area, they pack them tightly into blocks, and there's about 6 channels in between that would fall under the old rules of the white space devices and free up a couple channels to do white space devices for like a Wi-Fi or a internet service provider. I don't know if anyone else have you heard that, or that's just speculation on my part.
That I haven't heard exactly, no.
But I noticed when I did it, took the scan data from like a New York scan and I put it through a spreadsheet and came up with like a 2020 scan. There's like a good block in there that.
How did you scan the future band?
I used a spreadsheet, and then every 6 megahertz, it references a field, like if it's in this band, subtract 6 or add 3 or wherever it moves to, so it moves all the data points around.
Those are calculated.
It's calculated, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also interesting to think about, like, Google's position has been just they win either way. For example, they'll just let the chips fall, and they'll benefit no matter who takes the spectrum over or what other ISPs or white space devices might be there. So I think this, for me, our voice really is about First Amendment use versus the economic and benefits of having this wireless broadband. I think there's an inherent irony in all of this that has to be said, which is that we as content creators are being stymied by the forces that want to distribute content.
I have a question from the web. It is from Michael. Is Zaxcom considering using the 470 range, and why haven't they in the past?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the?
Sure. Is Zaxcom considering using the 470 range, and why haven't they in the past?
As of right now, we haven't, mostly because there are the emergency vehicles in the 470, and also because we can already fit 1,000 channels of wireless in our 0.5 band. So there hasn't been a need for us to go that much lower. We'll see what the future holds. It's not like we won't. We can absolutely do it. It just hasn't been a necessity yet.
Scott, yeah.
For Howard, what's the approximate price to refreak a 411 transmitter and receiver?
I'll look it up for you for sure later, but it's around $600 or $700 in that range. Just don't quote me, please. I'll look it up. Yeah. Okay.
And it depends on age, right? And it's
Somewhat on age, but it's just a published number, I think, for the most part.
I heard it was $850 for the 411 and $350 for the transmitter.
Okay, I believe you. The older I get, to be honest, the less these numbers stick in their memory band.
Another question. And this is based off of a discussion I had with Carl a while back. With the new wideband receiver that you guys have, the new Venue, the Venue 2. There was talk about a smaller than rack size version, something like a half rack version that might be something like 4 channels. Is that in the works, or is that still vaporware at this point?
Yeah, no, I understand it's in the works, but it's not close, unfortunately.
Okay.
But we should see it.
What does that mean?
I've been in this business too long to really understand the time frame of some of these things, so I think we just have to take it as future product, but really not a knowable exact time frame.
Vega's always best.
Vega's, yeah, Vega's best, thank you. Vega used to be best, now Vega's best.
Now Vega's best, yeah.
Any other? Yeah.
So on the low-power digital TV in the New York area that was above 600, I heard there was some talk about letting them reallocate, move after this is over. Has anyone heard anything about that?
I definitely have not. No.
And so I know the ones that were below 600 are still there, or most of them, but the ones that were, there was some talk that they were going to let.
I mean, I was looking at the spreadsheets last night again, and a bunch of them are just going away.
So they actually specify that they're going away?
In the stuff, the presentations that we'll provide, and mine have the spreadsheet that the FCC published.
Okay.
Of what's going off the air in the transition.
My data could, since I was going off some, when I looked at that last time, the data wasn't as complete on the LPD.
Yeah.
Low powered.
It was updated in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got another one from the web. This is to everyone. Steve says, I apologize if this is redundant, but to be clear, are there any additional frequencies that are available to the licenses aside from just priority, higher output power, and channel reservation?
Yes. In the guard band, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the guard band, licensed users get an additional 4 megahertz of space,
Exclusive.
exclusive
Yeah.
for them.
And the STL band 9. It's now not. It's
941, 960.
941 to 960. It's been opened up.
But they don't get higher power output. I thought they still are limited to the 20 milliwatts. It's
No,
the
in
white.
the STL band, it's still higher power.
Oh, in the STL band. Okay.
Yeah.
But in the guard band and duplex gap, it's 20.
It's 20.
Even
Okay.
for professional.
And that does remind me of something I wanted to mention, which is I'm curious how many people have used digital wireless here, like Zaxcom or okay. Yeah, I mean, 20 milliwatts in a digital transmitter is a fairly substantial carrier, and it is pretty good compared to analog. It's not, I wouldn't say twice as much if you're looking to compare, but it's close. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say.
Definitely.
The STL band, out of everyone here, who makes stuff that can operate within that band?
Well, we have the Lectrosonics IFB right now.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else here actually has gear currently, but I have a feeling you'll see some appear.
I thought I saw like Shure is like I saw mentions of bands.
Yeah, it's something, if we're not doing already, we're obviously seriously considering it, especially with the Axient Digital and the PSM 1000 product, for sure.
Just one more question about the license. It's not gear specific. You don't have to say what gear you're using or wireless.
I think you say number of channels, Jim. And Jim Dugan is in the back row. Total RF is the name of his company. He is. I feel like you are an expert at this. You deal with this is your like bread and butter.
Jetwave Wireless.
Jetwave. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's like 3 companies ago. It's all right, Pete.
I'm sorry. It's a miracle. I got your name right. I'm turning.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm sorry.
So,
Gets
tell me the
worse.
question. What was the question again? Give me the question.
Is it gear specific? The license, do you have to say what frequencies or bands or blocks or whatever?
I would say it's, by FCC standards, it would be FCC device type
is probably the language that it would be a device type. So whatever the device is will have a type acceptance ID number, and so you'll probably have to have that number to register your device.
So you are literally registering the devices.
It's not like a serial number. It's more of a device type. It's like a.
Oh, I see. But you don't have to say how many you have.
Like the emissions designator.
Probably
Okay.
would, yeah, I would think you would.
It's like the emissions designator on the label. Like that's the
Yep.
type. Yeah. If you look, you'll see like a sticker on the transmitter.
I was wondering about getting the license, but then if you are then going to be getting other gear, like, or if you're going to be retrofitting or upgrading, or how that would work out.
Well, the license is good for 10 years. My understanding is you would put, the number of units that you think is the most you would ever use at that.
That gives you the leeway.
10
Okay.
years, yeah. All right. Let's enjoy this beautiful day. Thank you very much. Thank you to the crew.
I want to mention one thing, especially for anybody that's here or online. We'll have all of the slides available. Maybe we'll do an email blast so everybody has them. We'll put them on our website so you guys can take a look at them more in depth and analyze them a little more if you want.
Excellent. Joe, Max, Nick, Jared, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.